My name is Vundi Mungula. I represent the SIANI Kenya Expert Group. I'm the lead junior professional. I'll present what the expert group from Kenya has done, and I'll take you through generally what my presentation will entail. I'll explain why the giant. Melinda mentioned giant. She emphasized on the giant, so I'll explain why we think it's a giant. I'll do a brief introduction, and my introduction will entail, I'll explain a bit how we came up with the SIANI Kenya chapter, the objectives of the group, and the scope of work. I'll explain a bit of the journey. We had some challenges to achieve our output, so I'll take you through the approaches we had, and then the findings we did on, and then experience achievements and the conclusion and the way forward. So why do we think that Kenya's agriculture is a giant? First, it's a driver for economic growth and transformation. The ratio between economic growth and agriculture production is 1 to 1.3. That usually, when there is economic growth, when we experience economic growth in Kenya, much can be attributed to increased agriculture production. The other is the percentage of population involved or affected by agriculture. Over 80% of rural population in Kenya is involved in agriculture, and 40% of the total labor force draw their income from agriculture. Next is the Kenya agroecological zone diversity. This provides an opportunity to have a wide variety of value chains that we can grow and be food secure. The other is the demographic characteristic, youth. One of the panelists mentioned that linkage between youth and rural development. So we think that given that much of our population is more to the youth, it provides a good opportunity to grow agriculture. So a brief introduction now. ASDSP is the partner to SIANI Sweden. It was co-funded from SIANI Sweden and ASDSP. ASDSP is a program funded by government of Sweden through SIDA and government of Kenya in the proportion of 80 to 20%, 80 from SIDA and 20 from government of Kenya. They did a baseline survey, 3 baseline surveys, agribusiness survey, policy and institutional survey, and household baseline survey. It told on commercialization, productivity, income, and food security. The results from the surveys showed a worrying trend on status of household food security, food productivity and incomes, underemployment, and youth and women participation in agriculture, land degradation, and little to no commercialization. Just to mention a brief, on food security, approximately over 60% of Kenyans or rural Kenya is food insecure. Their incomes 70 cents per day per household. Employment is down. Youth and women in agriculture, the proportion compared to men is below average, and what I'll show evidence of is there's little or to no commercialization. Once the findings, a brainstorming on the findings led to establishment of the group of experts, and using what I can see from here, SIANI Kenya adopted the same model. It drew experts from academia, government, private, and then hence now SIANI Kenya chapter expert group. Our objectives were phrased in question. One was to find the status of agriculture sector, where we were, and find reasons why it was the way it was, and then how we could include stakeholders, harness the potential, and remove obstacles to commercialization. How would we achieve the objectives? We'll come up with the situational analysis papers, and later on draw policy briefs from this, and later on write a report on the general state of commercialization in Kenya. the journey. We had two approaches to accomplish our strategy. The first was the initial concept was an expert group approach, drawing more of the senior experts. Senior expert is experienced, older, sorry to use older dinosaurs. Yeah. So launching was successful. We did the launch in February the 17th last year. It was successful, a lot of enthusiasm, but did not work. It was abandoned after 3 months. Reasons, one, we found some didn't understand the concept. The other was time, given it was more of a volunteer, and there was little to no monetary compensation. So in Kenya, or generally in Africa, if you don't award people for their time, they don't give you their time. And then, so later on, after the 3 months, we come up with a new concept, an approach using junior experts, young people like me, through a mentorship approach. We'll draw some of the experts group. ASTSP, as I had mentioned earlier, is a partner, and we used the technical advisors to the program, mostly were from NIRAS, and they offered to mentor the junior fresh graduates from campus. It was successful and provided information partially, answering the what and the why questions. So just to dwell a bit on the approaches, the expert group approach, the concept was based on value chains. We came up with 3 categories. There was near to commercialization, nowhere near commercialization, and outliers. The value chains were, just a minute. Sorry. The value chains are dairy, fish, poultry, and banana. We thought those were well on their way to commercialization. The value chains we thought had the potential to be commercialized were cassava, meat, honey, mango, Irish potatoes. Outliers, we consider them to be local vegetables, agroforestry, sorghum, and pasture. The second approach, the junior expert approach, will use the same value chains for analysis, and it will engage in right shops and use a cost-effect methodology to investigate the issues assigned to that affect commercialization. So hence, the slide shows mechanization in brackets cassava. So one of the junior experts, that's the name we refer them to, came up with a paper detailing. She was investigating the state of mechanization in the cassava value chain, across the whole value chain, from production to the market. So she found that the yield for cassava was 15% of potential, that we could achieve more, and she thought that one way will be through mechanization. She was promoting that promotion of the cassava value chain, technology transfer and development along with the value chain, how mechanization can help commercialize the value chain, the cassava value chain. The other was farm organization, more on dairy. This was one of the commodities or value chains we thought were well on their way to commercialization. Using the definition she came up with, she found that to be commercialized in dairy value chain, 85% of the produce should be marketed, but currently we only do 55%. So she thought that using collective action and bringing farmers together could enable them to be more commercialized. The other one was profitability, centrally on maize. If you read most reports regarding Kenyan maize, it shows that that's the basis, that's generally what we grow. But subsistence level, we found that maize cannot be profitable at all, and that open pollinated varieties give higher margins at a lower production level compared to hybrids, as it's mostly thought. At present yield level, per capita income of a household that's growing maize is 5 cents per day per household, which is very bad. Later, the other paper was on agricultural data. I did this myself. So I investigated status of access, reliability, and level of investment of statistical data in the agriculture sector. I found that there's little to no investment, that access is limited, and that reliability of the data is questionable, that it's very unreliable, and that little or to no emphasis is put on use of data. And one of the panelists mentioned that SIANI advocates more for evidence-based results. So use of data in developing policies and in making decisions is vital in order to move the Kenya agriculture sector towards commercialization. Experiences and achievements, like I mentioned earlier, our objectives were phrased in questions. So on the what question, we achieved some, why, some, and how. Hopefully we get a new face. I'll mention that towards the end of the slide. The SE approach, that was the senior expert approach, the first approach. I mentioned that it didn't work due to some of the reasons I've highlighted there. Time, monetary compensation, and gaps of concept. The other issue was capacities of the junior professionals we engaged. All of them were fresh graduates. We all hold a bachelor's of science, something related to agriculture. I'm a Bachelor of Science holder too. The other was commitment from both the junior experts and senior experts. And then the process was vigorous, and hence the reason why I mentioned that we had two approaches, because we experienced some of the delays and all. In conclusion, there's a lot of programs the development partners funded and also within Kenya that are trying to look at commercialization. One thing we found out that not many, both from the Kenyan government and also development partners, understand what commercialization will mean for commercialized agriculture will look like in Kenya. So output papers, that is the situational papers and the policy briefs we wrote, give evidence that commercialization is being superficially addressed. There's a need for deep understanding of commercialization, like I mentioned, and there's need to develop adequate policies to agriculture driver of rural. So before I get to the thank you bit, our analysis was more, we based it on the Vision 2030. There's a strategy of how Kenya is envisioned by 2030 to look like. So SIANI Kenya came up with that according to the Vision 2030, Kenya is a middle income economy. So we based that, we drew up what it will mean for a household to be in a middle income, what it will take for growing this value chains, that probably issues like land issues that at the current state, Kenya cannot commercialize because of land issues and access to finance and such. Yeah. And finally, I want to say, sorry, I do say finally a lot. Finally, SIANI gives an opportunity. I was impressed when I came yesterday and met some of the SIANI team that the larger proportion of them was young people. That does not happen often in developing countries. Me being here, it was strange when I left Kenya. They were expecting somebody bigger. Bigger, I mean dinosaurs, like you mentioned, to be sent over. So SIANI gives that opportunity, links youth you feel involved. And hence, one of the panelists mentioned, there's need to link youth and what the vision, what you see should be. And hence, we're very thankful that I've been given the opportunity. Thank you.
Sorry, the dinosaur now says that we have time for one or two quick, this is such an interesting presentation, it's not every day. Is this working? That we have him here. So one or two quick questions. One there. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Cecilia from the government's offices. Thank you, Stephen. And I must say it was very refreshing to hear somebody who's just finished his education getting into these very difficult issues and starting work on them. Because one question that we ask ourselves is that, yes, demographics is youth, but what about youth? Do they want to stay and work in agriculture? Do they see a future there? Was that something that came through in your work? Thank you.
Anyone else have a? Okay, then we'll let you answer that question.
Okay. In Africa or generally developing countries, there's a misconception that you can only involve youth in any sector if it is ICT related. That we have become to technologists, that it's only if you use ICT. But looking at a different angle of it all, there's need, if we are to grow to any sector, including agriculture, there are need for technical people and such. Youth are interested, but the issue is at what level do you engage them? Yeah.
Well, then thank you very much for that excellent presentation. And the dinosaurs stand in awe.
Yeah.